What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Monogatari. Off-season monster season. Yeah, what happened last time? That's a good question. We started a new arc with this ShinobuMonogatari or ShinobuMonogatari. And, yeah. We went right into the investigation with Deftopia, possibly. I mean, we saw her, but unreliable narrator, so we don't know if that's actually the case or not. Let's actually go into the comments. Don't worry, it's not a lot of comments. Let's, boom, get the comments on the screen and see what you guys have to say to me. Welcome back. Why Araragi said living messages because the mummy technically is still alive. Yeah, that is actually a very good point, right? I do assume like living message is probably like a trope to possibly crime series. I mean, I kind of, from the top of my head, I'm thinking of something like Sherlock Holmes, a study in Scarlet, where there's this whole thing about spoilers about this specific Sherlock Holmes story, where the whole point is kind of that there is a murder that happened, and at the scene of the murder, there is in blood written supposedly a name which we identify as possibly being Rachel, but not completely spelled out, because you do have R-A-C-H-E, right? And everybody assumes it might be Rachel or something similar to that, a name like the victim was able to actually spell out their killer's name, but in the end it actually comes out that the message was Rache, which is the German word for revenge, or retribution, which is kind of a very neat twist. And it kind of connects differently to the case and kind of gives us a hint as to what the motive of the murder eventually actually is, and who possibly could have done the murder and whatnot. In typical Sherlock Holmes fashion, obviously the murder is somewhere close by, and we actually managed to get him. I think that was the case in that particular story, but I could be wrong, of course. Either way, yeah. Living message, multiple meanings. Living message as in a message that lives on beyond the death of a certain person and actually gives us a hint, but also a living message in the way that the person who got attacked is still alive, so they in and of themselves are the living message, and they're holding on to the message. I believe Suicide Master is a well-known oddity, so no surprise Gain as a specialist knows. Yeah, I kind of said that more of in terms of like her being immediate, like, how does she know? Obviously her thing is I know everything, and it's kind of a little bit jokey. I just want to clarify, I don't hate Gain as a person, right? I don't think she's the enemy. I don't have any particular bad feelings for her, although like, I think the way she goes about things is not the way I would go about things and the way I would like people to go about things. But that is besides the point. And she does have some fun dynamics with Koyomi and with other people. And yeah, all of that, me being like, fuck you, Gain, or whatever, that is mostly just joking around. I like 99% of the characters in this entire series, which is unusual, I gotta say, because oftentimes I do either dislike some of the characters or I do find them boring. But in this particular series, Nisio can write a lot of good stuff, and as a result of that, we do have thoroughly interesting characters that are all to a degree likable. I mean, even Episode was like a non-character. I'm like, okay, this is like interesting design, cool little tidbit backstory, right? We don't know a lot about him, but still good enough for like a background character. Yeah. McClayman says Deftopia's initials DVS is a grammogram, letters that when spoken sound like a word for devious, yeah. Or DVS, isn't that like cassette tapes or something? I don't know. Kissshot's initials K is 2 times her signature laugh. Yeah, Kaka. Okay, this one might be a stretch, but Tropical S initials, THD, could be sort of pronounced like Toady, which, if true, quite fits his character. Yeah, I think that is kind of a stretch, but still funny if you point it out. But the devious is probably intended when we go by how Nisio Isen writes his novels and how he writes characters and character names and how he actually pays close attention to how stuff sounds, even when it's not in the actual, like, in the language that he grew up with, which is Japanese. Simon says, riddle me this, Koyomin. Okay, all right, Gan. Where's Candace? I thought Deftopia eats only what she kills, so it's either even professionals no longer have standards, or it's not her. That is a point that I actually hadn't considered. I mean, because we saw her, right? But as I answered for this comment, it's like, maybe someone is trying to make it look like Deftopia. Maybe they actually are. Though I don't know what purpose that would have, and also, why did we see Deftopia in the beginning of the episode? Is it just Araragi telling the story, and because they believed it was Deftopia at that point in time, he's telling the story like that? Unreliable narrator. We had that with Kaiki, for example, right? The goat. Or is it Deftopia after all and something changed, right? It's one of the two. It's very interesting, really. Then again, we did only see Deftopia meet that person, right, from the basketball team, and her smiling and whatnot. We didn't see her attack them. We didn't see her feet. We didn't see anything. So it could be she met them for whatever reason, maybe coincidentally, right? Stumbled upon them while she went here because she wanted to find out about Shinobu and whatnot. So she is here, but maybe somebody else is actually doing these. I don't know why though, right? And why leave Deftopia's name? Why frame her, right? There is so much going on that we don't, like, oftentimes you gotta go with Arkham's Razor, right? Because like the simplest solution is often the most probable one, and that is that it's Deftopia in this case. But something isn't adding up and we don't know why it is. So very interesting point. Andrew said, I really love Wufan Wufan's completely new design for those English version covers. I own a whole copy as well with the original cover design. Speaking of design, Miniko's mouth shape I think is mainly because of the series character designer, Watanabe Akio. Shout out to Akio sensei. That's how he likes it. Okay, he likes to design them this way. I've seen them like this a couple of times, I think. A couple of characters that make that expression. I think Nadeko has made that expression before, but I gotta say, it's only for specific characters, right? That have a specific personality. I haven't seen that for Senjugahara, I haven't seen it for Hanekawa, right? It feels like this is something where it's like, okay, this is a specific design preference, but it is also for certain character and expressing something with it. Because not every character had that expression on her lips. Like, a lot of them don't, and probably almost never had that, so something to think about, right? Even if you do have a certain design preference, you might have a certain design preference for a specific character type, archetype, right? And as such, it often occurs, but it doesn't have to occur for every character that you create. But yeah, really cool. I didn't know that the character designer is actually not Wufan, so interesting to know that Wufan is doing illustrations, but they are, like, there is an additional character creator, so shout out again to Akio sensei for doing the goated character designs. Interesting. Johanna book is the last one. Don't forget, it kind of goes after Otori or something, but you can ignore the order, to be honest. Well, I mean, I answered with it. I don't know when I'll actually get to it, to be honest. So we'll see. And Hotoa, whoever that is, feels like a lot like this might be Uta, but I might be wrong. Asks or says something about Disco Elysium Part 3. It's out right now, so go check it out if you want to. We're learning a couple of very interesting things. Just read the title, okay? Just read the fucking title. If you played the game, you know. If you played the game, you know, okay? Like, it might seem sus, but if you played the game, you know. If you know, you know. But yeah, that was the comments already, right? We're done. We're done, so we're going right into the reaction, and after that, as per usual, hopefully we're gonna do an extra discussion. I should have enough time for that. Maybe even have enough time to record another something or other that I'll manage to squeeze in, because starting tomorrow I got 3 days of continuous work with a lot of like workload, especially one of them is a night shift, which is like 10 hours. I mean, night shifts are often a lot quieter, a lot easier, I feel. I haven't done them many yet, but at the same time, more time, right? Flip side is you get a little bit more pay, which is really cool. All right, Monogatari, I got it up here. We do see that there is really cool the plate and the table set and whatnot that we had in the last episode already. It's chapter 9 of ShinobuMonogatari, and I am very curious. Are we gonna see Shinobu this time? Hopefully, right? Because we're on the trail now, right? We need to employ our vampire lolly slave. Holy shit, even saying that, I'm sorry, like, I have a roommate, but he's not here right now, thankfully. But also the window is open, so taking these words into your mouth and expressing them while talking at like a very like relative loud volume. The only thing I'm thankful for is that I'm not in a primarily English speaking country, because then people would be like calling the police in like 3 or 4 days or something, right? Okay. Because they don't understand. We understand, right? We understand it's a joke. They don't. Alright, let's fucking get into it. Monogatari starts in a 3, a 2, a 1, a bam. Ooh, epic. The music. You already knew 3. 2 more. 生徒が5人も行方不明になっているとなれば、すでに十分すぎるほど大事件じゃないか。Yeah, small town, right? そんな中でもやや異質なのは、授業や試験の強度から生じるトラブルではなく、トレーニングやチームワークから生じるトラブルという点だろう。本人は否定するでしょうけれど、はっきり言って直江津高校のジョバスは。カンバル駿河によるカンバル駿河のためのカンバル駿河の部活動でしたのでね。問題はルガーが左腕を怪我して引退した後もその仕組みがそのまんま受け継がれちゃったってことで、私がキャプテンを務めているうちはそれでもどうにかこうにかだましだましうまく。And it worked to a degree, right? 4月に引退した途端、一気にガタが来ちゃったみたいでして。Now you were just holding. 苦しんでまでやるようなことじゃないんだから。そんなに辛いならいっそやめてしまえばいいと私なんかは思うんだが。Genius sports player, right? We'll talk about that later. やめたんじゃなくって練習中に怪我をしてやめたんだけれど。それでどうにかしなきゃって3年の OG 会で集まって、ああでもないこうでもないと議論して、まああれこれ対策を実行しないじゃなかったんですけれど、かえって効果だった。
Sorry.
この数日で部員が次々と学校に来なくなって、生地表面上は何の問題も起きていないみたいにも見えるからタチが悪いんです。辛いって思ってた子たちも一段落ついちゃうと変な充実感っていうか
多幸感に満たされちゃったりもして麻痺してくるし、うっかり弱音を吐いた子をみんなでこぞって非難すると、それが変に楽しかったりもするみたいで。私たちからその体制を変革しにくいというのもあるんだ、荒木先輩。
Yeah, I mean, of course.
その体制自体、私たちの世代が作ったもので。
But it is your responsibility in a way.
私たちがやっていたこととほぼ同じなのだから。そう。
This is poignant.
私たちだってやっぱり間違っていたのかもしれません。体罰や行き過ぎた上下関係が横行していた時代を経験した指導者が、今の時代には合わないかもしれないけれど、あれはあれでよかったって自説を曲げられないように。
Yeah.
いや、私は入部した日から引退する日まで毎日楽しかったはずなんですけれどね。学校側には口止めされるし、いよいよ切羽詰まったって思ったタイミングで荒木変態からアプローチがあったんです。これは天の恵みかと思いました。
Good timing, huh?
分かったよ、東ちゃん。僕
ちゃん Okay.
女子同士のデリケートな問題に関われるとは思えないけれど、その名簿を貸してくれるなら、少なくともこれ以上、君たちの後輩の中から行方不明のメンバーが出ないよう全力を尽くすと約束する。
For whatever reason, right? Not just... Oh, that was a great shot.
そう言ってくれただけで十分です。
Again, beautiful shot.
彼女います？
Alright, she's making a move. What? Hello?
確かに、どうしてもう目指すべき先輩もいないのに勉学を犠牲にしてまで過酷な練習に身をやつさなくちゃならないんだと、鬱屈した気持ちを抱えていた女子バスケットボール部員たちの心の闇が吸血鬼を引き寄せたという仮説には一定の説得力がある。
Why would that attract a vampire though?
ふさわしい理由があるですか。
まあ、あの姪っ子も決してポジティブな理由で足が速くなったわけじゃないんだから。
そうだった。
Hmm.
スーパースターは生まれた時からスーパースターだったわけでは
Yeah, I mean, true.
どころかスーパースターにならざるを得なかった少女なの。
And it was a grisly story. Yeah.
そんな猿から解放されても思春期らしい悩みからは解放されないわけだ。ま、後輩に煩わされるのは先輩の宿命でもある。コヨミンの安請け合いを成し遂げるためにもここは張り切らないとね。まずは行方不明の残り2名の部員を重点的に捜索しようか。関宮美佐子ちゃんと奇跡そうわちゃん。
Alright.
後から思いついたんですけれど、ひょっとしたら口元ちゃんが単語帳に書き記したと思っていたリビングメッセージは吸血鬼が残した署名だったってことはあると思いますか？
I mean, that's what I thought as a first,
た
but...
だここにいる播磨関恵ちゃんの所持品や隣室の本能あぶりちゃんの所持品からは
Okay.
それらしき署名は見つからなかった。
It wasn't, but
もちろん
did...
リビングメッセージもなのだけれど、しかしもしも例の単語帳に書かれていた B7779 が署名なら、すべてのミイラに同様の暗号が残されていそうなものなのだ。
Yeah, because then it would be a calling
ち
card.
ゃんの場合、打ち捨てられた掘ったて小屋の中だったから吸血鬼も人目を気にせずゆっくりと作業ができたってことじゃないでしょうか。
一応筆跡鑑定をしてみたけれど確たる結論は出せなかったね。
Okay.
両者の筆跡が一致しているようには見えなかったが、吸血鬼に襲われながらの走り書きだったら乱れていても当然だし。
Yeah, but would she put it into a cipher? Right? Would she be, like... Would she have to...
とても助かるんだよね。といったところで、私は指揮官としてコヨミンに今夜のコマンドを入力したいと思う。
あ、はい。なんでしょう。
これはコヨミンにしかできないことなんだけれど。
Shinobu?
しのぶちゃんを一晩押さえつけて
Ooh, okay. Interesting. First of all, how does he do it? Donuts?
お前様わしになんか隠して
おいおい、別に何を言い出すんだ、しのぶちゃん。
I have nothing to hide.
もたれ合った僕たちの関係も終わりだな。
終わるかズブズブじゃ。 わしはこの通りお前様の鍵にがっちり強固に釘付けのごとく縛り付けられとるっちゅうんじゃ。
まあまあ、ほらしのぶちゃん、お前の好きなドーナツをたくさん用意したよ。
Bribery.
チョコレートだよ。
それが怪しさ満載じゃっちゅうんじゃ、我が主様。こ
Mm.
んな出声を出すな。出し抜けにごまかそうとしてるじゃないか。
Keta Araki, holy shit.
くそ、ガイアさんも無茶を言ってくれる。忍に隠し事をするなんて、親に隠し事をするよりも難しいぜ。
I imagine
切れない一心同体なのだから。
part of the same thing.
ほら、ミスタードーナツ期間限定のやつだよ。
お前様よ、そんなことを言ってはぐらかそうとしても。え、半分がポンデリングで、もう半分がオールドファッション。なんじゃいなこの夢のドーナツ。パないの。
Distracted for 5 minutes.
午後10時だから、日の出まであと約7時間か。頑張れるかな。
Ooh, love that angle. Ooh. The OST, when the OST kicks in.
そうだ、しのぶ。お前との思い出深い春休みからずっと尋ねたいことがあったんだけど。
そんな1年半の長きにわたる思いがあったのなら、なぜもっと早く尋ねん。
僕ってあの春休みにお前に血を吸われて不死身の吸血鬼になったわけじゃん。
Yeah, yeah,
ほら
okay.
覚えてる？
Mm-hmm.
消滅しそうだったお前に。
This fucking image.
とニヒルに笑いながら自ら首筋を差し出し。
Ah, yes.
どうした？受験勉強とやらで使い果たしたか？
I wasn't
あの
even.
時僕が吸血鬼化に失敗していたら一体
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
そもそも吸血鬼化の失敗は吸血種にとってはどういう意味を持つんだ？
Kaka.
ついにそれを語るべき時が来たか。成長したな、我が主様。不老不死
Okay.
者から成長はせんのじゃがな。
一人乗りツッコミをするな。もう不老不死じゃないし。
結論から言うと、もしもあの時お前様が我が眷属、我が奴隷となることに失敗しておれば、思考力を失ったゾンビと化しているでしょうな。
Alright, we saw that in
覚えておらんか？いつじゃったか違う時間軸で見た
Jiganshi, yeah.
バネの群れを。
ああ、あったな、そんなこと。そうか。それを今回のミイラと連結して考えてはいなかったけれど、言われてみれば僕はもう前例を知っていた。あれが
The question is, what do the mummies do at night?
パイレーとするならば、あの時間軸の別ルートの押野忍は言うなら一種の自暴自棄で目的も動機もなかった。この度の吸血鬼も自暴自棄なのだろうか。
Reckless, right? But what emotions is behind that? What emotions is behind that?
吸血鬼を知っているわけじゃない。高校時代の友人の数と同じだ。片手で数えられる。
Yeah,
全員忍絡みではあるけれど。
exactly. But this one is too.
いや待てよ。待てよ待てよ待てよ待てよ。そうだ。これもこれで孫うことなき見落としたぞ。
What is an oversight?
というのであれば、直接の接点こそなくても、僕はもう一体吸血鬼の存在を把握している。
You are aware of it, Doffer?
忍お前を吸血鬼にした吸血鬼。僕にとっては大元となる吸血鬼について、そういえばまだ聞いたことがなかったな。
Is she gonna talk about
語
them?
るべき時が来たか。
Number 2.
必死にして
Ooh, okay.
吸血鬼。かつてのわしの生みの親にして名付け親。デストビア・ビルトゥオーゾ・スーサイドマスターについて語るべき時が。
And this name's gonna trigger something for him, right?
あらかたわかった。
Alright, she told it, right? We're gonna...
僕に今晩、忍をとどめておくように命じたのだ。
どうしたお前様。恐れをなしたか。かか、無理もない。わしもこの通り、ブルブル震えるわい。まあわしも去年、お前様とのいざこざがあるまで、自分が元人間じゃったことを忘れとったくらいじゃから。
Oh, she's forgotten it.
サイドマスターとも600年近く会っておらんわ。
Right.
かか、無軌道な生き方をしておったあやつこそ、神聖の吸血鬼じゃからの。
A truly reckless way of life.
なあ、忍。無軌道な生き方って具体的にはどんな感じだったの？
Oh, I love that OST. So amazing.
なんだろうと食い散らかす悪食なわしと違ってグルメな吸血鬼じゃったな。
A gourmet, yeah.
メニューをこれと決めたらもうそれ以外の食材は口にしないというような頑固さの持ち主。
But did she not eat since she... But how?
まだ人間だった頃のわしを吸血すると決意したスーサイドマスター。
Yeah, but she couldn't eat another vampire. I mean, she could, but...
餓死するところじゃったからの。まあわしはそれを憐れんで血を吸わせてやったようなもんじゃ。
That's a little bit of another telling.
わしらしくって悪くないとニヒルに。
僕と同じこと言ってるぞ。
血は争えんな。
It's true, I didn't even notice that.
なぜいきなり今になって今更みたいにスーサイドマスターの話をわしはしておるんじゃろう。
She's gonna get on. Yeah, that is your own fault, Aragi. You were too inquisitive.
今開けるよ。いらっしゃい。
こっちだよ。鬼の
Ooh, Ononoki. What are these classes? Ononoki was visiting Bocchi.
もののきちゃんじゃないか。ちょうどいいところに来てくれたね。さあ遠慮せずに僕の膝の上に座りなさい。僕の膝は君のチャイルドシートだ。
お前様、キモいことを言う前にドアをノックしたのに窓の外から現れた人形娘のコント技法に突っ込めよ。
ゆっくりくつろいできたまえ。おののき今日。
貴族
Good.
幸いなことに鬼のお兄ちゃんの膝の上でくつろぐほど暇じゃなくってね。
Fortunately, yeah, for all of us.
おののきちゃんは現在別件を担当していると。だとすると何の用で？
Oh, that might be the Tsukuyi case, actually.
来ちゃいけなかった感じ。
Because, like, Tsukuyi is out of order with, like, how it happened.
帰ってきたら月日のアホが在室中みたいでさ、勉強とかしてやがんの。けれどこっちでもお邪魔だったみたいだね。まあ暇じゃない僕はおいとまするからそのままディスカッションを続けてよ。おっとそうそう、はいこれお土産。
なんじゃ、迷子娘が神様を務める北白
Ooh, Hachikoji? Hachikoji?
両吉。いいのか悪いのかよくわからんな。
なん
It's
じゃ
okay.
仕事じゃとか言ってうね迷子娘のところに遊びに行っとったのか。だったらわしも呼べよ。
遊んでいたわけじゃないよ。
What the
親
fuck?
戚とはいえ迷い姉さんもあれでも一応この町を統治する迷子だからね。仕事をする上では筋を通しておかないとひどい目に。
おののきちゃん。月日ちゃんが部屋を開けるまでここでのんびりしていってくれていいぜ。チャイルドシートとチャイルドはこれから深夜のドライブに出かけてくるから。
What do you got in mind, Aragi? Oh. Alright, we're visiting the girl. What the fuck is happening? What are you doing, Hachikoji? She's on a training arc.
これはお恥ずかしい。ついに見られてしまいましたね。私が陰ながら修練を積んでいる姿。
どこが
Foreshadows.
滝じゃなくてスポットライトを浴びているがごとしだったよ。お前。
いやはや、水も滴るいい女とはこのことではありませんね。
ないのかよ。
そんなわけでお久しぶりです、アメフラシさん。
確かにお久しぶりだが、僕の名前は荒木だ。
New jokes? Is that it?
違う、わざとだ。
Kamimamita.
わざと
Yeah.
じゃない。
神々か。
でもわざとじゃない。
Alright.
も会いたかったですよ、ノブシさん。誰がノブシ
She's wiping her hand up the...
結果、忍者がモノノブになってしまうとるじゃないか。わしの名前はシノブじゃ。ってわしもやるんかいこれ。失礼、噛みました。違う、わざとじゃ。神々だ。わざとじゃなかったんか。またみかみ。アナグラムはわざとじゃないんかい。もといアナグラさん。
じゃないか。噛んだことでまた新たな噛み方に繋がっていったら永遠に終わらない。
もといアララギさん。
She's leveled up since we last saw her.
お呼び立てしたのは他でもありません。実はアララギさんに紹介したい幼女がいるんです。
Ooh.
何やら事情がありそうだな。
事情もなく幼女を紹介されとったらマジでや
Deftopia?
じゃろ。
or one of the basketball girls.
どうやらマジでヤバいのはお前の方だったようだぜ、しのぶちゃん。
幼女を肩車したまま得意げになるな。肩をすくめるな。しがみつくぞ。
Young, 600 years young.
わしに紹介したい幼女。はい、こちらです。
The sliding, all the sliding door. Ooh, yes, yes. And she's like completely the
スーサイドマスター。なんちゅう変わり果てた姿に。
おい、しのぶ。
right.
お前何を言って。
Go. Ooh, Shinobu doing a flip.
危ない、しのぶ。気をつけ。
She looks concerned, right? I mean, that makes sense.
言っておきますが、幼女のミイラは最初から裸んぼだったのです。
That's not the problem.
最初からミイラだったわけでもないのです。どういう意味じゃ。一体何があった。神よ、一体今この町で何が起こっておるのじゃ。
しのぶ、どういう状態なんだ。
Yeah, this is like she didn't feed.
裸の幼女はお前の生みの親でもあり、名付け親でもあるスーサイドマスターがそもそも幼女だったってのにも驚愕しているけれど、その形状は吸血鬼になり損なっているゾンビみたいなコンディションなのか。
いいな、言うならこれは官民じゃ。
Yeah.
屍ではなく既得状態みたいな。
Starving to death.
じゃからわしらを呼んだのじゃろ、迷子娘。ええ、海外からのお客様に隠しされるのは当事者として目覚めが悪いですからね。ですから事の真相を知るためにも荒木さんにはこの方を回復させるためのお薬を調達していただきたいのですよ。
Alright.
薬って何？調達ってどこに？
この世にはありません。でもあの世にあります。ご存知の通り。
After left, I'm sorry, what?
言われてもそんなの知らないぞ。
ご存知のはずですよ、荒木さんは。だってこないだ旅したばかりじゃないですか。地獄ですよ。血の池地獄です。
You're telling me we need to go back?
仕方ねえ。どうやら行くしかなさそうだな。僕の第二のふるさと、地獄へ。
しのぶさん、お願いします。ほいきた。
Are we serious? Hello? We're doing this. We're actually doing this.
こんな風にお前様を無礼打ちにする機会をずっと待っておった。よくもわしをチャイルド
How do we?
など座らせて恥ずかしめてくれおったな。
喜んでくれているとばかり。なぜ今になって辛かったの？
Why are we treating this like this is normal? What the fuck is going on?
復讐は冷めてこそ美味なるスープじゃ。
てっきりスープの冷めない距離で付き合っているつもりだった。
400年間研鑽し続けた剣術をとくと味わえ。我が精神
Holy
に
shit.
7つの奥義がある。1の奥義、強化水月。2の奥義、波長風月。3の奥義、
But can we speed it up?
4の奥義、
No, we can't.
5の奥義、落葉。
I,
6の奥義、金城天下。7の奥義、落下老石。
utter shambles. Yeah, me right now.
奥義を同時に繰り出す静止流の最終奥義。七か八列。
That's it? Holy shit, I like right before the end. No, it's not. It's not over, right? No, it's over. I'm sorry, but Araragi dying was not on my bingo cards. Like, it just wasn't. Different lyrics? That sounded different. Maybe because I've listened to like the song a couple of times in the last couple of days while editing thumbnails. So maybe I'm too used to like the first verse. And that's why it threw me off just now. Either way, it's a banger. All right, that is it. I'm gonna speed it up and we are going through this in just a second. I'm just gonna check if everything is okay, since my recording crashed on me earlier due to supposed overheating issues of my camera. I literally never had that before. I mean, I had heat before it's being displayed and whatnot, but I never had overheating issues before, especially like it's not that warm outside. Like I was recording in summer at 36 degrees for I think like 1 to 2 hours on 4K right here, right? Or especially like even in my previous like room, like the old setup where we're in the south, where it's even warmer than it was over here, and it's like 12 degrees outside or 15 maybe. Like, this is not warm. I don't understand how my camera is overheating, but you know what? It's fine, right? Maybe it's because battery was at like 95% and I had it plugged into the power, and maybe that's why it was overheating. I don't know. I'll plug it in later. So we do have proper battery, but it should be enough for a discussion and whatnot. Holy shit, I do hope that my recording is that it's actually okay, but I'll check afterwards, and if it isn't, then no Monogatari, I guess. All right. Let's bring this up. We have met Deftopia, and it's not her. Simon was right. Okay, like, I mean, who could have seen that coming, right? I mean, like, there was hints here and there, but like I said, Arkham's Razor, it was, as of before this, still more likely that it was Deftopia actually doing the thing. But there were little hints, of course. There were little hints. We start out kind of with the thing that we were talking about with the basketball team, the cohesion breaking apart. And I wanted to talk about this. Thematically, we're gonna separate it into, like, the discussion later is gonna be art discussion, because most of the time, if I go through this and I analyze stuff, it's way easier to just, like, I don't know, go eat dinner or something and look over the episode and analyze the art a little bit and write down what I want to highlight, and then put that into, like, the separate discussion. And we're talking about the plot right here, especially since plot is happening. So Ruga, which is very cute that she calls her that, will likely deny this, but to be blunt, not so be basketball team was the extracurricular activity of Suruga Kanbaru by Suruga Kanbaru and for Suruga Kanbaru, right? It was built on her, and interestingly enough, as we mentioned a couple of seconds later, Kanbaru was actually very driven as a person, not out of her own desire to be good, but out of, like, fear of actually bad things happening to other people if she's not better than them, right? Because of her monkey's paw. Well, not monkey's paw, the devil. Like, that is a thing driving you. And it's very interesting that she says, like, you should quit basketball if it's not fun, when she was the one who actually did all of these sports things and was so driven by these sport things out of fear, right? Fear is a powerful motivator, but only in the short term, because in the long term it creates a lot of stress. It creates desperation. It creates this immense, deep, dark feeling in you. And fear is not a good motivator on a long-term basis, right? You need to do something because you like doing it, and not because you're afraid that when you're not doing it, something terrible is gonna happen. So I do wonder how Kanbaru did kind of conjoin these two things, right? Her actually being into basketball, having fun with basketball and whatnot. We do know that she, like Numachi, for example, I think it was Numachi, right? Switched over from soccer to basketball, whatnot. What was that? Or was it actually Kanbaru that switched over to basketball? I don't think so, because of her hand, right? Oh, there's somebody, I know somebody switched over to basketball in order to be, right? Maybe she switched over to basketball because she was like, yeah, exactly. There was that whole runner thing, right? That she wanted to be the best runner, and then the devil actually went out and assaulted all of these people who were competing with her, and then she was like, I gotta quit. I gotta put my thing into something else, right? And then she started doing the basketball thing because that was something that was unrelated to that specifically. Or maybe I'm fucking... You guys let me know if I'm kind of confusing that. It's been a long time since I've seen Suruga Devil. Or not Suruga Devil, it's... what is it? Monkey, right? Suruga Monkey. Devil is Hana Monogatari. It's been a little bit shorter since I've seen that one. Although even long enough, right? Probably more than a year now. And I've only seen Hana 2 times, I think. One time with Tibu and one time with like Pink. Maybe I've seen it with Shark, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I've seen it with Shark too, so 3 times. While I was captain, I tried every trick in the book, right? You're trying to keep up this thing that is kind of crumbling at the seams. So what you would need technically would be a complete rework of how you approach things. And that's really true. Like, people, individuals, as well as teams, they don't work the same way. We're all unique in the way we function, the way we work together, the way we get motivated and all that. And even though there is general tendencies in which kind of methods are better, right? Which kind of methods have less stress, which kind of methods are more effective in doing things. For example, if you are trying to raise a child, it will be way more effective to use rewards as a kind of motivator and a tool to actually raise them and teach them things rather than punishments, because punishments are, in a way, they do have a lot of negative effects as well, right? There's things that can happen that damage the mental, the psychological integrity of the development and whatnot, and create stressors and all of that. But yeah, just like that, there's different ways to teach people, right? But obviously there's also, in a way, self-destructive ways to train, self-destructive or destructive ways to teach a team that might be effective for certain teams, right? Certain people react to it and they actually grow, I would say, almost despite these things happening, right? And because of the adversities that is thrown at them. But if you actually put them, right, wouldn't put that adversity onto them, but rather motivated them with rewards and with other ways to inspire them, right? Maybe they would have been even better than they actually are, right? Because obviously pain and suffering, you often say that this is like a general consensus that humans in just like the general social space have, that pain and suffering make for good music pieces, right? Make for good literature and whatnot. But I do think that this is on a certain level wrong, because while it certainly can help that you have made certain experiences and put that into that work of art, and it can help you as well, right, to deal with that, to process it. It is also true that these things will come to you either way, right? These things come to you, maybe not as much, but these things, pain, suffering, are part of ultimately part of the human experience. And you don't have to expose yourself to even more or expose other people to a lot of pain and suffering just to get them to try to become somebody greater. I think if there's a will, if there's the talent, if there is the endurance to actually push through that, it will happen either way, and it doesn't need anybody just putting in more suffering and more adversity and just being hard on somebody for them to actually be successful, for them to actually get better at the things that they're doing. It's like justifying the means to do something by saying, look, it turned out well. While there is like a dozen or millions of other examples where people actually were successful, where people actually managed to reach certain goals without that. So I would say in most of these cases, it is despite or in spite of these things happening to these people that they are successful, that they push through, and that they manage to become somebody great. Which, in this case, I guess Kanbaru would be, right? At least on like a high school level, that she's like the person who was super successful in basketball, and when she left a void, right? She left a structure that was specifically tuned to her style of learning, her style of practicing, her style of actually becoming somebody, which might not have been right, which might not have been the right thing to do for these specific people coming up, right? To hone the talents of those. And also, there's also generational differences. We have to keep that in mind too, right? When people talk about, like, I hear that a lot, especially these days, like young people these days don't want to work anymore. Young people these days, they don't, right? They're all lazy, right? They want a lot of like vacation and holidays. They don't care that much about work anymore, right? People bragging about, I don't know, bragging about working 80, 90 hours a week and being like, yeah, look at that, right? I'm working myself to death. You could be like me. And I'm like, no, why do I want to be like you? Why do I want to work myself to death, have psychological issues at the age of like 40, 50, get thrown into a midlife crisis, be like, oh shit, I have done nothing with my life except for working away in an industrial like job where like all that I do is just producing more stuff for somebody else to get rich of that, right? And yeah, being part of the economy, right? Earning money, providing for your family, those are important things, right? But you shouldn't put that above everything that you have in life, right? Above your friendships, above your family, right? You are earning money to provide for your family, but you put the work above your family. That makes no sense. That makes little sense, right? And school, right? So many things, right? I'm just yeah, coffee. Great. No. We're talking about this, okay? So many people in school, they think they have to perform, otherwise they're gonna be, right? And it's true, because we humans, we build up these structures of like, you only get to do this if you're this good, or you only get to do this if you're this. Oftentimes that's absolutely arbitrary. I know so many people who were like very average in school because there's like a lot of subjects that they were not particularly interested in, right? And after school they were super interested in some of these because they were like, hey, that's really cool stuff and that's really interesting stuff, and now I don't have to learn it, and now I understand where it could be useful, or where I've developed a fascination for it that is beyond just having to perform because somebody tells you to perform without giving you an explanation of why and how it's going to be useful and all of these things, right? A lot of people, like teachers, when I grew up doing math class and whatnot, teachers, you'd ask them, why do I need that, right? In which like connection does that stand with the other things I'm learning? And then they're like, right, you have to learn it because I tell you to, right? Because they don't know why it's important, or they're too lazy to tell you, or they are too rushed because there's so much they have to cram into 1 year of school that they need to teach you, that they can't take the time to actually dedicate a little bit of that to some people who might not be the most intelligent, the most interested in your specific subject, to kind of bring it closer to them. And I think maybe you out there, you relate to what I'm saying here, but the teachers that stuck the most in my personal mind were always those teachers who were really, really enthusiastic about their subject, who you could ask anything and they would start talking about it for 20 minutes or something and explaining to you why it's so amazing or what's so interesting about it. The people who would not try to pitch it to you, but more just like talk about it to anybody who would be willing to listen. And I think those are the teachers that actually stuck with me, right? As people, as concepts that I still have in mind, where I'm like, oh yeah, that teacher used to be a really, really cool guy, or this teacher, she used to be very into, like, for example, I don't know, English culture or French culture or whatever, or this teacher taught me history like nobody else did, stuff like that. And I think that is very important to have that enthusiasm and show people that why are these things important, right? And the problem is these days it's often just check that box, get this gun, get an A here, get an A there, right? And then you can move on to the next level. It doesn't matter if you forget everything that you've learned for these tests and exams and whatnot, because now you got the degree and now you get to the next thing. And in the end, like when you start working, it doesn't matter anymore. It often doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, it matters that you have the general processing capability. It matters that you have certain like base knowledge that you can build upon, but it doesn't matter that you were the best of your class in whatever, right? Because what's important is that you can get the job done and that you are actually interested in the thing you're doing, right? So many people that I've met in school that were average that turned out to be really, really good at the specific thing that they ended up studying or learning or whatever. So yeah, I think it's never good to just be too much of a hard ass. Also, it's very easy for somebody who's a genius at something, right? Like Hambro in this case, to say sports isn't something you have to suffer over to play, and then right, it's blended in. That is a very interesting contrast. Genius sports player Kanbaru, and then it's going back and it's like, yeah, that's kind of like a nod at like, you can say that because you're so good at what you're doing, right? Although she has, like we said, specific circumstances with all the stuff that she gotten into where she had to perform to actually not have anything bad happen, which is also crazy. And I do wonder how she is seeing that herself at this point in time. I mean, I guess she made peace with it to a certain degree. But yeah, that has to be a lot of stress. That has to be a lot of potential trauma and whatnot. And she's saying some have already quit, of course, though they didn't turn in a letter of resignation. They just practice until they were done, right? Until they injured themselves. Or they used the injury as an excuse. We had that last episode where we were like, all right, she's using like, please somebody attack me so I have an excuse to not go to practice anymore, which is like, holy shit, that's insane. Third year alumni gathered around and had a discussion saying it wasn't this, it wasn't that. I think it wasn't like we took one measure or another to solve it, but instead it seemed to have backfired, okay? And in the past few days, team members stopped coming to school one after another. On the surface, it looks like there are no issues whatsoever, which makes it even more terrible, right? We do have like these posters and people like putting them up on a pedestal. We'll head to nationals again. Let's win the championship, right? Like Kabaru or Higasa's teams did. On the server, terrible. One thing settled down for those who felt agony got a strange sense of... Once things settled down and for those who felt agony... Okay, once things settled down and for those who felt agony got a strange sense of satisfaction and sometimes enter a state of euphoria which paralyzes them. These subtitles are sus. I'm sorry. These subtitles are sus. I'm sorry. MTBB was not out yet, so I wasn't able to actually get it. When everybody criticized the girls who thoughtlessly made complaints, they seem to have strange sense of fun making those criticisms. Don't play hooky. Are you running away by yourself? Right? It's like the group mentality. At least that's what I'm getting, right? It's like people are complaining like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, whatever, right? And then people are like trying to keep you in and being like, it's not that bad, don't complain, right? They're criticizing the girls who are thoughtlessly making complaints. It's hard for us to change the structure from our end as well because it's the structure that helped us, right? That worked for us. And this is when they actually go into this. I think that is a very good point. The only difference is how they feel about it, right? Oftentimes you do have things that work for you and in the end you feel like, okay, this wasn't too bad, or yeah, I got where I did because of these things, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the truth, but for you it is the truth, right? It is subjective truth to you. You're like, okay, I did this, I practiced, whatever, right? I kind of tortured myself in a way, and I got there, and this is the result of that, and because of that, I'm happy about that, and I also did that willingly, put myself into that. Not all of the basketball team members are probably doing that, right? They're getting into the team, they're like hopeful, they want to make nationals, whatever, and then like it's a thing of like, you gotta practice hard, and after a while they feel like it's not working that well, right? The methods are not right? They're built up in a way that makes them suffer or stressed and whatever, and they're giving up on their academic paths, and then they're like, oh, I'm not so sure about that, and then their teammates are like, this is how it is, right? Don't complain, this is part of it, right? If you can't take it, then quit, right? Stuff like that. And that happens on a lot of levels. Like, for example, I remember a couple of years ago when we talked about Cyberpunk 2077 and the huge crunch that happened there with like all of that stuff that went wrong with the launch of Cyberpunk, but also with like The Witcher 3 had a huge fucking crunch, like a deadline crunch of almost 6 months. And I do remember there was a lot of like Glassdoor reviews of devs who were like, don't work here because this is terrible, right? People are like expecting double time, right? Overtime, 80 hours, unpaid, whatever. And then people from CD Projekt Red who were like in the circle of like in the mindset, I would say almost cult-like, right? Like an obsession where they're like, okay, I don't mind doing that, right? I don't mind doing extra time. I see that as part of it, right? I take pride in that. And then they're like, this is just how we are, right? And that's the defense, right? They're kind of coping in a way to be like, oh no, this is how we are, right? We grind, right? And then you're putting those standards onto other people that for who that doesn't necessarily work, and for who this is like torturous conditions that bring them into a major depressive state, making them be borderline suicidal or whatnot. And you're like, well, I guess you weren't hard enough for it, right? I guess you weren't good enough for it. Putting up these standards of like, this is where I'm at, right? You better be here, otherwise you don't belong here. And having this almost toxic work culture where it's like, prideful to take more and more work and abandon everything else in spite of that, right? To deprive yourself of basic needs and all of that. I know that because I personally, sometimes I am in that mindset, right? When I'm studying for an exam or when I'm like making new editing videos or whatnot, or I'm working on a project and whatnot, and I'm like, yes, I take pride in like having spent 8 hours continuously studying or doing something, working on a project without eating, with barely drinking anything and whatnot, but I know it's not good for myself, and then I have to get myself out of that mindset and be like, you know what, like, let's take a break, right? Let's chill, right? The world is not gonna end just because I take an hour, right? I mean, for me, it's extra hard because I do have ADHD as, I mean, not strongly, right? It's like borderline subclinical, but I do feel that, right? Because sometimes when I'm out of something, when I stop doing something for an hour or two, it's very hard to get back into it, right? It's very hard to start it up again. It's very hard to actually get to the point. Sometimes you spend hours kind of ringing with yourself, doing stuff, wasting time until you actually get back into it. But the problem is, right, once I'm in it, and I'm in it to win it for like 8 hours, something like, not always, right? That is like the extreme examples, but you're like 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, right? Stuff like that. And that is great, right? And that is great that I can do that and just lock in. But the problem is that sometimes you just gotta take a step back and you gotta take a break and tell yourself, all right, it's fine, right? Chill. You need to take a pause, you need to eat something to get your nutrition, you need to drink something so you don't get dehydrated, you need to actually take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, in the long term, you're gonna be suffering for it, and that means that the things you're doing, right, basketball here, or my content right here, or exams in terms of like studying university and whatnot, or the work I'm doing, right, which is also important to me on a personal level, just beyond earning money, I'm gonna be starting to phone it in because I don't have the mental capacity to actually do it. So you have to stop yourself and be like, no, this is not how I want to do it. And oftentimes Yeah, I mean, long-winded rant right here, right? It's not a tangent because it's very topical, but long story short, in the end, the people who got to success by methods which are not ideal, right? Which are maybe hurtful to themselves even, often like to defend those methods because this is how they've gotten to where they are, without realizing that there's another way to do it, right? There's another way to do it without destroying yourself. But there's this weird sense of pride in that, right? That you've made all of these sacrifices for the thing you wanted to reach, which can be very harmful for yourself, right? But you're not willing to give up because you're like sunk cost fallacy, right? You're in so deep, right? You have made so many sacrifices. If people suddenly tell you that all the methods you did reach your goal with were not absolutely necessary and you could have done it in a way that would have been maybe healthier for you, easier for you, then you feel like, what the fuck have I done this for, right? Why did I destroy myself? And it's true, right? But like this is a self-protection mechanism and it kind of perpetuates itself, and it works that way on a work level, it works that way on a personal like family level, how you raise your children. It works that way in many aspects of life, and we have to stay aware of that, because it can damage a lot of things and it can lead us to have conflict with the next generation, which have different values, different ideas of how to lead their lives. And then we're going to reject that and say, oh, young people these days, you can't do anything with them because they're too weak, right? They're too soft. Maybe they just see what you've been doing to yourself. Maybe they just see what you've been doing to yourself and they're like, nah, I don't want that, right? Like, I respect you for what you've managed to reach, but there's other ways to do it, right? And there's other things beyond work, right? There's free time, there's friends, there's all of these things. But yeah, maybe we were in the wrong after all. Exactly, right? Like how coaches who experience corporal punishment pecking orders gone too far. Perseverance results won't change their opinions and would say it may not be suitable for current times, but it was good in its own way, right? The end justified the means kind of deal, right? Because it turned out well for me. I mean, from the day I joined to the day I retired, every day should have been fun, I think, right? And this is what they notice. Things are not fun for these people anymore. And this is a problem that goes beyond Suicide Master or whatever. And maybe, who knows, the true culprit of all of this. The true culprit of all of this might be one of the members of the basketball team. It could be, for example, the first girl we saw. Maybe she got turned by Suicide Master, and now well, no, she isn't, right? She's a zombie. Damn. Maybe another one got turned by Suicide Master, and she's been attacking all of these. But I don't know. Feels weird that Suicide Master met up with the first girl, Kopeni-like, right? And shortly after, there's like zombie failed vampires everywhere, and suddenly there's these hints to Suicide Master. So I'm wondering if there's somebody who has goals that oppose what Suicide Master is doing, maybe another minion of her, or somebody who was acquainted with her in some way, shape, or form, who is trying to actually, to blame Suicide Master, right? It would also not be out of question. I don't want to raise it too much because I've been like giving Gaan a lot of flack. So, but it wouldn't be out of the question for Gaan or somebody like her, right? A specialist, be that her or not a specialist, to actually be like, you know what? I want to set it up in a way to deprive Deftopia of every little bit of power that she has, right? And avoid her meeting Shinobu as long as you can, because obviously maybe that is connected, right? That she doesn't eat before she hasn't met Shinobu again, right? A kiss shot in the way she knows her. And then I want to actually use that time when she's at her absolute weakest and vulnerable and manage that to actually vanquish her as an oddity. Because obviously there's a lot of specialists out there whose main method of actually fighting oddities is killing them, right? Banishing them, basically. So that is a possibility as well, right? That we have somebody in there who is playing a game that is different from ours. And our game is like, we want to, right? And the collateral damage is worth it for them. But I don't know. I don't know if if I would put that onto Gaan. She doesn't seem like the kind of person who would be this ruthless, right? I mean, she has been blindsiding us a couple of times. For example, ShinobuMonogatari, where she did all of that stuff with Araragi and Hell and whatnot. But she has always had a grander goal in mind, like reviving him again and stuff like that, right? Where she hasn't been unfair to us in a way. More like, yes, unfair in a way that she's not sharing all of her knowledge with us, right? That she's keeping things behind so she can play her own game. But her game has always been in the favor of Araragi and the rest of the crew. So I don't want to put it on her that she has some nefarious plan going on. I do love this shot. It's amazing. And we talk to Gaon again, right? The shadows in the hearts of the girl carrying depressing emotions. Like, why do I have to sacrifice academics to devote myself to rigorous practice, and if the upper class may no longer here? That may have attracted a vampire. Okay, so vampires get attracted by negative emotions? I didn't know that. But maybe I blanked out on that, but I didn't know that. I thought that was more of a like, okay, maybe the people are isolated, right? People are like vulnerable and then that attracts somebody, but actual negative emotions attracting vampires specifically? I mean, I know that oddities are born of negative emotions in a way, right? Not exclusively, but in some ways born of negative emotions because they are, right? They are in a way creations of the human mind and of the like collective consciousness in a way. But I didn't know that. So you're saying apparitions have reasons suitable for them. Reasons suitable for them. But how do you connect vampire with like negative emotions like depression and pressure and like, right? I mean, I would connect the vampire, at least the traditional legend, more with greed and hunger. And if we go specifically even into Shinobu or Suicide Master, we would have more of a temperament, right? And I'm sure we're gonna figure it out eventually, right? And we mentioned this with Kanbaru, like her wish with the monkey. We talked about that. We're getting annoyed by your kohai is the fate of a senpai. Araragi with Kanbaru, right? Interesting that she said she's getting annoyed with Meme and Kaiki and even whatchamacall, I always forget her name, Kagenui, that she's referencing that. Yeah, we want to look for the other victims. That's her pitch, right? She's like, let's look for them. And he's like, there's more an afterthought, but was that maybe a calling card? It doesn't add up. She's saying that herself, right? Also, I was saying that during the reaction. I didn't have enough time to actually explicitly say that, but if you are a victim, right? And even if you know what's going on, vampire, whatever, right? And you know who it is, would you pack it into a cipher, right? And would you be able to actually just quickly do it like that? I mean, it takes a genius, I would say, to actually do that in such a quick time, right? Put something in a cipher that doesn't make perfect sense to me, right? Prime numbers especially, right? Unless they're really, really well at doing math. She's doing like some handwriting analysis, and she's like, it doesn't match up with the handwriting of anybody who they know about, right? The basketball members or whatever. I mean, we have to keep in mind these are all people who are going to a prep school, so it might be possible. But Araragi also went to this prep school. He's very good in math, but he took some time to figure this shit out. So writing stuff like that within like a very short time, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, right? She's leaving that out, not purposefully, but just like in her logical analysis. And she's like, keep Shinobu occupied. Look at this fool. Look at this fool. He can't lie to her. He can't. Also, Araragi, I'm sorry, but where is your hand going? Can you stop? Can you stop being true to your reputation, please? Good job, Shinobu, you're denying him. But, oh no, it's the donuts and you get, like, distracted by it. Yeah, 2 parts of a whole, right? We do have that. I do love every part of this, because especially with, like, the yellow and the color coding, and then we have Mr. Donuts, him as a cat, and all that stuff. Very funny. And then we go to... Ever since that memorable spring break, if you had a feeling that lasted as long as a year and a half, why didn't you ask me sooner, right? Something's been bothering you since then, why didn't you say anything sooner? Well, because it got into your mind just a night ago when you talked to Gan, right? He's like, oh, never mind about that, right? And you just got to me, right? And he's just like, I think it's very fun. First of all, they show it in a very beautiful way and very reminiscent of what we've seen in the last couple of episodes in like Monogatari and whatnot, how she's being displayed, right? I mean, it's not quite Asarola Hime, but Kiss Shot is as close to Asarola Hime as you can get in terms of like visual look, in terms of like nobility, right? The aura and everything, that it's still there. But it's funny that in his mind, he kind of romanticizes that, right? Like this absolute mess that was Kizumonogatari, we have it romanticized in our memory. And she's like, I'm sorry, did you study too much? Is your memory just fucking poof? This is not how it happened. Memory is a reconstructive process, so if you have warm and fuzzy feelings about something that happened in the past, even if it wasn't warm and fuzzy, you're gonna have like the nostalgia glasses on, right? You're gonna connect these feelings that you retroactively connected to the event happening in the past, and it's gonna feel like the event when it happened actually was more comfortable, right? More warm and fuzzy than it actually was because of the feelings that you retroactively connected to them. It's very interesting, right? On the one hand, this kind of memory it often leads us to make errors in our personal like memory and whatnot, but it also leads us to very interesting ways to maybe process things that happened in the past that at the time were bad and traumatic for us, but in the present time can lead us to develop in a way, right? And then we reassess the situation and we change the emotional component of our memory, because memory, like I said, is reconstructive. So different parts of the memory, the emotions, the visual things, right? The perception or audio, the perceptions that we get during the memory, the hard knowledge, right? The factual knowledge, the semantics of what happened there. All of these things are saved in different parts of the brain. And when we remember something, then we take all of these parts and put them back together. So in a way, it's very interesting that we can emotionally overwrite some of these things and be like, okay, it's actually not or it was bad back then, but in the long term, right? And this kind of connects us to like what I said earlier with Kanbaru in the basketball team and how practice works and how like growing up works and whatever, right? You retroactively connect that and you're like, oh, it wasn't all that bad, right? And then but many people don't realize that, right? Many people don't realize that this is not how it initially felt. This is not how it initially was. And maybe there's a lot of issues that happened in between that were because of that. Just because you arrived at a better place right now in the present doesn't mean that at some point in the past, in between, there wasn't a negative effect of that. We like to often justify past things with our current state being okay or nice or fine, right? And we go for the kakaka. And we explain like the mechanics, right? With like the zombies and being unable to think if he wasn't actually turned, right? And we had that before. I think it was in Giganchi, right? Was it Mayoi Giganchi, right? Where we went in the past and changed it, and suddenly like all of that shit happened where in Bakemonogatari basically Araragi didn't come for Shinobu and he died and she turned and yeah, all of that stuff. And she was reckless, and the person who is doing the things that are happening now is reckless. But it can't be Deftopia now that we know that she's absolutely starved and at the end of her rope. It's very interesting that the only, like, all of the vampires that Araragi knows are connected to Shinobu. But it makes sense, right? Because the vampire legend is not from Japan. So every imported vampire basically is in connection to what's been happening to Shinobu and him within the course of that time. And he's asking about Deftopia because it's been mentioned to him by Gain. She dropped the hint, and I wonder if she's done that on purpose. I find it very interesting how Araragi actually imagines that, because this is not how it happened, or at the very least, maybe this is actually how they parted ways, right? Maybe she actually got her outfit there, which I'm like, what? What? I'm sorry, what? How long has this outfit held? But yeah, she looks very, like, Deftopia looks very grown up there, so maybe that's actually when they parted ways. Either way, though, she's like, I intimidated, it makes me tremble as well. I don't know if we tremble because of the same reasons, Shinobu. I had forgotten that I used to be human. That is very interesting, right? If you live this long, that you've forgotten that you were human, right? Or maybe it's like a birth kind of thing, right? When you're born, you do forget that birth. So maybe it's like a pseudo-traumatic event that, yeah, like it's like just washed out and like this is your new being. But Araragi didn't forget when he became a vampire, so I don't know. Haven't seen her close to 600 years. A truly reckless way of life, right? Starving yourself to death until your desired prey actually becomes your actual prey. She must be long since crumbled into dust by now. Like that castle. A foul eater who eats anything, apparition or whatever. She was a gourmet, right? And that visual divide, that's amazing, right? With the dark and light. She almost starved to death, so I kind of let her suck my blood out of pity. And the parallels with her and Araragi. And suddenly, that's a funny thing, right? She looked like, this is way more seductive than it actually was in real life. So it's like, especially with her outfit and everything, so it's basically also a romanticized telling of what actually happened. And Araragi points that out, they're like, you're doing the same thing I do. Shut up. Mononoke actually dropping in, being like, what up? So either this is an arc that happens later, right? That is being referenced right here within like Monster Season, or it is the Tsukihi thing. So, because I think the Tsukihi's thing was like chronologically after the Nadeko thing. I mean, we could still be dealing with the Nadeko thing, but I doubt it, right? Because the Nadeko, I don't know. I don't know when this is exactly. I'm not that great at like reading where we are chronologically. She couldn't sneak in because Tsukihi was in the room. Yeah. Just excuse myself. Alright, and she's gonna drop off the Hachikuchi hint, and Hachikuchi's like, hey, look, we gotta talk to one another. I find that very funny that actually there's some rapport going on between Shinobu and Mononoke like that. He's like pouting almost. Like, what is that? You said you were working, but you were goofing at Lost Girl's place. You should have invited me too. She's like, I wanted to go too. And they're playing Twister. Just fucking shut up. Stop playing Twister, please. One in waiting, you should be the one to seek that person out. Oh, okay, that was the fortune, right? That was the fortune. Okay, cool, and that was the hint. Come see me. Hachikuchi going with like the absolute magic circles, making a grand entrance, right? Or right, a great presentation as they enter. Spotlight and everything. I mean, I can't say why else she would be doing that. It's just her being dramatic, which is funny as hell. Especially if we start with like the Kamimashita jokes, and it's just going in perpetuity. Actually, I need to learn that word. Give me a second. I'm gonna just like, the word is in perpetuity. And I just had like a brain aneurysm trying to spell that. I don't know why that is. Sometimes it's just that way with me. I don't know if you have something similar. I have certain words where I'm like, it's super easy to spell, right? It's super easily written, but somehow my brain is just, no, I'm not gonna say the word, right? I'm not gonna say it right. I'm always gonna stop you before that. In perpetuity, right? And it's just going on forever and ever. And she's just gonna add new letters and make new jokes about like the naming and whatnot, even with Shinobu. But it's funny how she got excited about like doing it herself. It's like normally Araragi's doing it, and now she's like, yeah, I get to do it too. Yes. It's really great because you do see like how Shinobu almost, like the character development of the bond between Araragi and Shinobu actually just being the way it is after Owari and what they kind of concluded for themselves, which is really great that they're even closer than they were before, and they're doing the same things and whatnot. We're presenting with as many sliding doors as we can. Deftopia at the brink of death, seemingly. And I do see, like, I mean, she is starving, so why is she starving? Is she intentionally starving herself, or is that there's something going on that's being plotted against her? I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but either way, it is obviously very near and dear to Shinobu's heart. And as such, obviously, yeah, obviously very, very important for her. And I do think Araragi sensed that very quickly. I mean, indirectly, he's related to her, so yeah, it's gonna be important for him as well. You say, as you are aware, but I'm not aware of anything like that. You gotta go back to hell, dude. Blood Pond Hell, you better enjoy the ride. But he seems to be really happy. He's like, oh boys, looks like I have to go. His second home, hell. And she's like, she's getting out the Kokoro Watari. I've long since waited for a chance to slay your roots. How dare you disgrace me? I thought you were happy about the booster seat. Revenge is a delicious soup. Right, and we have all the jokes. He's going with all of the different styles and whatnot. We're just playing it up like a joke, but it's, I mean, I think they take it very, very simply, I guess, right? I mean, since they have Yuma Watari, they can probably just get him back. So, easy hack at this point. It happened, we've done it before, right? We've been down this road. It's not something special, but they treat it very nonchalant, which it surprised me kind of. Gonna be very curious how that's gonna... And... oh, wait. Alright, I guess there's an after credits? What? Hello? And we have the Shinobu. And he's in it? Okay, cool. I might actually put that in... Oh, that's beautiful. Doesn't look like hell. Don't tell me he landed in heaven. No! Please, don't tell me he landed in heaven. What? Don't make the same jokes I do, Araragi. He couldn't, he's an oddity. Who the fuck is that? Sama? Utsukishihime. The hair. Are we serious? We're gonna meet Acerola in heaven? What? Hello? And why is she in heaven? I mean... Okay, my brain just stopped working. Yo, what the fuck?